Welcome back. To start off our section, to really understand functional programming, we need to start from the core concept, and that is the pillar, the pure functions pillar. We're going to start step by step with this idea of pure functions, and I'm going to introduce you to different functional programming terms that sound a lot more complicated than they are. And finally, after learning all these terms, we're going to implement our functional programming style to our Amazon shopping cart. So, what are pure functions? When it comes to pure functions, there's two main things. A function has to always return the same output given the same input, and the function cannot modify anything outside of itself. No side effects. Let me show you with an example. So what I said was we have a function that has no side effects. So no side effects. And then finally a function that, given the same input, returns the same output, no matter how many times we call it. So let's start off with the first one, the idea of no side effects. Let's say we have an array, and this array is a simple one, 1, 2, 3. If I create a function here, calling it function A, and this function A receives some sort of array, and it does the pop method on an array. So that if I call A array, and I run this, well, I get undefined, because I'm not returning anything from this function. But the interesting thing happens here. If I just console log dot array, I only have 1 and 2 left in the array. This function has what we call side effects. And side effects are, well, does the function modify anything outside of itself? And it does, right? Outside of this function, this A function, or let's just call it now mutate array, mutates and modifies this array that lives outside of itself in the global object. And this is called a side effect. We don't know what might happen to the array because anybody can call it and it can change things. So that if I call A, let's say again, oh, and I have to make sure that I update the name, my array is, well, modified once again. Or let's say that we also have a for each function. Let's say array dot for each, or actually let's just create a new array here that will say for each item, we will just push 1 at the end of the array. So that if I click run, well, look at that. Oh, and make sure that we have different names for this. So let's do mutate array 2 and click run. I have 1, 2, 1, 1. Now, this is pretty confusing. I'm not really sure what's happening here. I have to go one by one, line by line to figure out how these functions are modifying the data, this global state. And that's one of the problems with having side effects, is that we're using shared state, something like a global variable, that can interact with anything. And the order of the function calls matter, and that can cause a lot of bugs. So how can we write something that has no side effects?